Hello and welcome to today's episode of Stand Up. I've got two special guests joining me today. Elliot Ackerman and Admiral James Stavridis join me to talk about their new book, which is a third in a series. It's speculative geopolitical thriller 2084. I had a great talk with Elliot and Jim, and I think you will like it. If you want to jump to it, it starts at 16 minutes in. But it's Tuesday, May 26th, the end of May. It is unofficially summer. I hope you enjoyed Fake Sunday, which was yesterday, Memorial Day, and I'm very happy to have you here joining me. I've got your headlines and a clip show, so let's get to it, shall we? There are no advertisements. This is an ad-free show. I can't do it without your paid subscription. Go to patreon.com/PeteDominic or get a subscription on Substack at StandUpWithPete, whichever you prefer. Pay as little as $5, as much as you want. Many of you do. Thank you so much. All right. Yesterday, there was all kinds of exclamations about a peace deal, and today, the United States bombed Iran. So it's hard to know where we're at. Like I said yesterday, somehow Iran is beating Trump at the art of the deal, is a headline I saw at the Financial Times. The war could end with Tehran more confident, more hardline, and with new resources to rebuild its nuclear program. Wow. Okay. Well, that makes sense, seeing as that Donald Trump has something to do with it. Yesterday, when there was talk of some kind of a deal, oil prices dropped. Today, oil prices spiked back up after U.S. struck Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel plans to intensify attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. And Iran's brand new supreme leader, thanks to General Fatton, he's saying now that U.S. military bases in the Middle East are no longer safe. Okay, well, that seems like an escalation. That was quick. All right, well, back here at home, a chaotic scene erupting early yesterday outside this federal immigration detention center near me in New Jersey. It had been the site of protests, arrests of lawmakers, and reports of a labor and hunger strike by detainees. Protesters were seen blocking unmarked government vehicles and at some point were part of a skirmish with armed masked immigration and ICE enforcement agents outside Delaney Hall, which is this privately owned 1,000-bed facility that ICE uses as a detention center there near Newark. Tensions outside the facility escalated over the weekend. Politicians called for oversight after months of accusations of inhumane conditions, which led to these hunger strikes, by the way. Roughly 300 detainees participated in the strike. U.S. Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey visited Delaney Hall on Saturday after hearing reports of the hunger strike. He wrote on social media that he spoke with people who had said they were arrested at scheduled immigration interviews for green cards and witnessed a carton with the milk inside congealed solid. Ugh, gross. U.S. Congressman Frank Pallone said detainees showed him food that was served that was moldy and said the conditions are absolutely outrageous and that the place needs to be closed down. Protests outside Delaney Hall continued throughout yesterday afternoon. Video of people yelling at officers, sirens ringing out in the background, at least one person being detained. Federal agents seen throwing an unknown type of gas canister and telling protesters to get back. Senator Andy Kim was caught in a cloud of tear gas, had a hard time breathing. New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill, other Democratic lawmakers, said they were not allowed inside the detention center on Sunday and Monday. The governor said she would continue to advocate for the closure of the detention center, and things getting very, very ugly at that horrible place in New Jersey. I don't think Andy Kim is going to let that go. That guy seems like a pretty tough cookie, Senator Andy Kim. All right, well, let's go to California where we have some good news because the worst case scenario at that chemical tank emergency has been reduced. Evacuations are reduced. Some people even returning home after a crack in the structure was confirmed, and that helps apparently reduce the pressure inside, eliminating the risk of a catastrophic blast. So tens of thousands of people returning home. Authorities expected to meet today to assess the situation after officials expanded their focus overnight on cooling efforts, and evacuation orders partially lifted last night. So see, that's good news. There you go. There's a little good news. And a lot of people were involved with making sure that that didn't happen. I asked Desiree if her husband Ryan, who's a firefighter in Southern California, was responding to that. And she said, quote, nah. Thanks, Des. I guess her family was not affected. The Ebola outbreak is getting worse, of course, and it's no good. The African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Monday warned 11 African countries now considered to be at risk amid an ongoing Ebola outbreak. The World Health Organization officials called for international cooperation, cautioning no single country can respond to this magnitude of outbreak alone. The WHO director traveling to Congo on Tuesday says the Ebola death toll has risen to 220, warns, quote, at this moment, the epidemic is outpacing us. The very, very difficult virus is being made more difficult because there are different people attacking hospitals and tents being used to treat Ebola victims. Witnesses told the Associated Press a treatment center and the body of a person inside were set on fire by locals, became angry when they weren't allowed to retrieve the body of a friend who died. Of course, contact with the body of an Ebola victim is an easy way for the disease to spread. Authorities are handling burials whenever possible in the region. All right, well, obviously continuing to watch that, but the fact that the United States left the WHO, cut USAID, and so much more is really upsetting. Hearing a whole bunch of experts over the weekend who have dealt with this in the past be heartbroken over it in the present is very tough to take, and yet another casualty of this evil regime that about a third of us voted for, and I don't know how many people still support. And voters will go to the polls today in Texas to decide the Republican nominee in this pivotal Senate race that could decide control of the Senate. Big day today, really a big day. Also serves as a test, of course, for the Ayatollah's own influence. He's been doing pretty good endorsing crazy Republicans in these primaries. Also on the ballot are several member-on-member matchups, and a candidate, Maureen Galindo, had already been condemned by top Democrats for her campaign's controversial comments. The headline at Politico, Republicans worry the Cornyn-Paxson fight is tearing their party apart. After months of mudslinging, several Republicans are bracing for a messy primary finish and an even more costly general election. Well, good. Well, those are just a few of your headlines. That and the New York Knicks are going to the finals for the first time since 1999. So that's pretty cool. If you're an NBA or Knicks fan, I guess. I don't really talk about sports much here, but I have been following the Knicks. They've been a fun distraction. That's what sports can be. So, all right. Those are the headlines that I've got for you. Now let's get to those clips. Time for the clip show. Let's start with the very smart Jeremy Conyon-Dyke. He is the former executive director of USAID's COVID-19 task force. He is now with Refugees International, a very important organization, and led the U.S. government's response to Ebola 2014 to 2016 in West Africa. He was on Bloomberg and saying this is going to be a pretty difficult virus outbreak to contain. Here he is.
There is just dramatically less capacity in the U.S. government to tackle a challenge like this than there was even 2 years ago. We had learned a lot of lessons from that 2014 Ebola outbreak. At that time, of course, USAID existed. There was a very robust CDC. We were a member of the World Health Organization. And all of those things were really important. USAID, CDC, and WHO worked together hand in glove to lead the international response to that outbreak, and then reprise that again in the large outbreak in the same area of Eastern Congo or in 2018-19. And that's mostly gone now, that partnership. CDC is a shell of what it was, particularly their global capabilities have really been degraded. They're still there. I mean, look, the people are excellent. The people have tremendous knowledge, but will they be listened to by the people running U.S. health institutions right now? That's a big question. USAID, of course, is completely gone, and the U.S. is no longer a member of WHO, and often CDC staff are barred from even speaking to WHO. So that partnership has been just demolished. All
right, there you go. There's one expert for you. Now let's get to another. It's Ben Rhodes. He's a foreign policy expert, and he sat down with the Midas Touch crew yesterday to talk about the latest in Iran.
Seen short-term costs, and then there are the longer-term costs. We have also not been told the truth by the Pentagon and by the U.S. military, frankly, about the extent of the damage. I mean, I talked to people in the Middle East. The extent of the damage to U.S. bases, facilities, embassies across the region, we have no sense of the price tag, the amount of devastation, how long some of those facilities are going to be offline. We've also spent down an extraordinary amount of U.S. munitions that we brought from places like Asia, leaving South Korea more vulnerable, to try to defend all of these facilities and our allies. And what have we learned? Shahzad Iranian drones that you can make in your garage have hit our bases, have hit our Gulf Arab allies. An aircraft carrier cannot stop a speedboat from closing the Strait of Hormuz. And so it undermines the entire concept that America is a security guarantor, both in terms of our predictability and reliability and our not doing something as stupid as launching a regime change war against Iran, but also just in terms of our capacity and our understanding of where war is moving after Ukraine and Iran. Then I think there are going to be massive geopolitical shifts here. First of all, the Iranian regime, because of the war and the assassination of Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, who, nobody is shedding a tear for, but it's actually more hardline now. Iran is now run by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps that has demonstrated that they can control the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's fossil fuel energy flows. That is a huge deal. The Gulf Arab allies have played along with a concept in which we provide their security and they provide the energy, and that's kind of how the whole global economy works. Well, now their dependence on America has put them at risk. They were attacked because they are American allies, and we could not defend them. And that is going to lead them, I think, to start hedging against the United States and looking towards China. And then if you look around the world more broadly, to include our Asian allies and to include potentially even our European allies, who looks like a more stable and predictable actor right now? The Chinese Communist Party, that maybe you don't like the terms of the deal, maybe you think they're bullies, but the terms never change. Or the United States, where you have a president who's been imposing tariffs, launching wars, shaking you down for essentially tribute payments like he's done to the Gulf. America is not the stable bet. We are kind of the rogue nation in the world. And so I think what you're going to see in the long run, it puts at risk the dollar as the world's reserve currency. The dollar, I think most Americans don't realize what allows us to sustain our standards of living, which I already feel like they're at risk because of rising prices, is the fact that we can take on so much debt because the whole world transacts through the dollar. Well, and that includes oil trades, importantly. You're already seeing some nations begin to move away from that. And if that is the case, then that is truly the end of not just kind of American hegemony, but America's capacity to sustain its fiscal situation. So there's a lot happening right now.
Wow. Well, that's a lot. Thank you, Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor. Guy knows his stuff. He's warning of the consequences of this disastrous leadership. And now here is more on that. Former National Security Advisor and mustachioed fascist adjacent, although not as bad as Trump maybe, John Bolton. Yeah, guess what? He was on CNN criticizing General Patton on Monday, expressing hope that the ongoing talks with Iran fail. He wants the talks to fail.
Ambassador, are you feeling optimistic about this memorandum, given that we've seen negotiations break down before when it comes to the finer points of Iran's nuclear program?
Well, I hope the negotiations break down, because every day that goes by is a gift to Iran. It gives them 24 more hours to recover from the pummeling they took during the 6 weeks of U.S.-Israeli attack. It gives them time to try and reconstitute their government, which increasingly looks dysfunctional in decision-making capability. And it postpones the day of reckoning, ultimately, when the threat that they pose to control over the Strait of Hormuz is resolved in a way that they never come back and do it again. I think the ceasefire was a mistake. I think these negotiations are a mistake. I think we're on the verge of something that ultimately history will decide was a catastrophic loss for the United States. We have done significant damage to the Islamic Republic of Iran. And right now, we're letting them undo the damage. And that is a real tragedy, not just for us, but for the people in the region, too.
Well, there you go. John Bolton, the war hawk as ever, on CNN yesterday. Let's get one more reaction. This is Congressman Jake Auchincloss, Democrat of Massachusetts. He's pretty confused about the proposal that it should be mandatory that certain countries normalize relations with Israel as part of ending the Iran war, which is what our dear leader is demanding at the last second. Here he is on CNN.
When President Trump says that the Middle East countries that sign onto this deal should mandatorily be part of the Abraham Accords, that set of treaties that normalizes relations with Israel, do you think that would be a positive step? Is it actually realistic, or is it a distraction?
I support the Abraham Accords. I think the Abraham Accords were a credible achievement of the first Trump administration, and I don't know what that sentence means, though. challenge with the Abraham Accords expansion is not that these countries share an aversion to Iran. They always have. The challenge with the Abraham Accords has been getting Saudi Arabia on board, given challenges in the West Bank and ongoing attacks against Israel and its right to defend itself. So the Abraham Accord expansion runs through resolving West Bank issues, not on trying to foment further aversion to Iran, which has always been there.
All right, just a few clips and headlines for you here on a slow-moving News Tuesday. I didn't get into any of the Memorial Day commemorations and disasters from our stupid president who embarrassed us again and everything else around that. I also had a cataclysmic computer failure at 5:30 a.m. So it took about half an hour to get around that, but no problem. Fixed it. And now here we are with my conversation with Elliot Ackerman and Admiral James Stavridis. I've been talking to these guys for years, both individually and together, and talked to them about the first two in the series of books that they've written together. And this is, I think, a fun interview. I learned a lot from these two experts, and I kept it funny. And I think it was pretty good. I think you're going to like it. I think you should go get the books. I think you should follow them on social media and let them know that you heard them here. There'll be links in the show notes, and I'm very happy to have you here today. I hope you're doing okay, and I hope that you like this conversation with my friends Jim and Elliot. But I have got two of the best, and they've got their third book together that we're going to talk about, 2084. I'm very happy to have Admiral James Stavridis, I believe it's pronounced, and Elliot Ackerman, who, while he is a Marine, does not get any rank when introduced. And I'm sorry. Were you a captain? You were a platoon leader of some sort. Wikipedia didn't tell me your final rank, so I only call you.
I left as a captain, which they say is the best rank in the Marine Corps.
Do you only get called by your final rank if you retired, or if you got to the heights that you did, Admiral? Your friends call you Jim. I'm going to call you Jim as if that's the case.
Yeah, no, you're welcome to call me Jim. I always say once you hang it up, it's Jim around the circuit. But if you want to give a sense of that glorious prior life, you could always say Admiral. Either one is fine.
Well, I'm going to call you Captain.
I always think actually the best rank is not Admiral. It's not Captain. I think it's the rank of Commander.
Why?
Because it implies you're in command.
Oh, right. Yeah.
A captain could be the captain of a boat, or he could be like Elliot, be a captain of a Marine company. But I like Commander, which is actually lower than Captain in the Navy, strangely.
Oh, it is? You can take that too far, and you did at NATO when you became Supreme Commander. That sounds a little religious. I don't like that. It sounds a little bit religious to me, sir.
Well, it sounds like a job that, as Stephen Colbert would say, ought to come with a fancy hat. And it doesn't. I never got a fancy hat. And the really bad part is once you retire and you say to your wife, hey, could you call me Supremo once in a while for old time's sake? That's not happening.
You know what's super weird is when I asked your wife to call me that, Jim, is a joke I will only make to you guys as we promote this book, ladies and gentlemen, 2084. It is the third installment, and you got to go buy it. I can't believe I hate that you guys are well, I guess Elliot I always knew was a great writer. It's almost like he joined the military just to have experiences to write about. His mom was a writer, right? Mm-hmm. But Jim, you're also a great writer. You guys love to write. You're writing this book together. I don't know how you write together, and we can talk about that. But this is a serious business, these books. And so, Elliot, how do you what do you hope to achieve in this series of writing these fiction books about things that could happen? And of course, this is the third installment. There was 2034, 54, and now 84, where we're dealing with the climate crisis in real life.
Yeah, I think, each of the books has sort of dealt with a different challenge that Jim and I saw being important in the 21st century. So the first book, 2034, imagines a peer level war with China. The second book, 2054, deals with AI and our democracy. And as to mention, the last book deals with, the future of war and climate and how that affects geography and migration. So, with each one of those challenges kind of central to the book, we're also telling a story. I mean, these are like character-driven books. If you pick them up, I think you'll find them engaging. I think you'll find them a lot of fun. And many of the characters go, all the way through the books, those characters or their progeny. So, you could read each of the books stands on its own. But if you wanted to read the whole trilogy, they come through with a storyline and character.
Who uses the word progeny other than a great writer? Other than a couple of grad school military types. Jim, what do you know about climate change or the seas?
I'm not a climatologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not Joe Nye, the science guy, but I am a mariner. I've sailed the waters of the Arctic and the Antarctic. Here's a news flash, America. The ice is melting, and that has huge geopolitical implications. Everything from not only that thunderdome at the top of the world opening up with oil and gas and fisheries, but real conflict potentially up in the Arctic. It also is driving drought all over the planet, and it's driving the rise of superstorms. As a native Floridian, I tend to worry about superstorms. And one of the interesting little tidbits in 2084 is the fact that my beloved Florida has not only broken away from the United States, it's now the Free Republic of Florida, but it's also about a third underwater. Fortunately, Camp DeSantis remains viable, from which the Florida fighter squadrons deploy.
Readers, listeners, viewers can take some solace in these guys don't get everything right about the future. They think that there's going to be potentially a Camp DeSantis. But I was one of the few readers who took joy in seeing Florida be buried underwater, even though it's your beloved. I do not wish anybody suffering, nor do I take any joy in it. I kid.
Pete, you'll be glad to know that Camp DeSantis is at the location of the present day villages. So the villages become Camp DeSantis.
Right.
Pete, you could drive your golf cart down from New York.
It'll just be my robot head and in a jar of ice of some sort. It's a long ways away, 2084. But you guys, obviously take liberties. You're authors. You're creative guys. You're great writers. I love the characters that make it through all of these books. But Elliot,
can I give you one other little, since we're on the geography piece?
Yes.
Greenland is very central to this whole thing. And it's not a spoiler because it's just so wonderful. But at the very end of the book, the last scene is a woman planting grapes, building a vineyard in Greenland.
Because you don't have to be a climate scientist, Elliot, to know that the temperature change in the next 30 to 80 years is going to be such that land that is currently not able to be arable will be, or more arable, or more less hostile to things like grapes and apricots, things that you could only grow down south. You're going to be able to grow in my backyard in upstate New York and Syracuse, right? Like that's the prediction about why Greenland's going to be so great.
Exactly. I mean, listen, we're seeing that right now. I mean, we're seeing the Trump administration is very fixated on Greenland. And the fact of the matter is, the way the climate change that directly affects geography and the fates of nations are determined by their geography. So what we're just doing is imagining what that new geography might look like and some of the challenges and conflicts that might come out of that changed geography.
Yeah. And if you think about it, Pete, there are going to be winners and losers. Northern Canada may be the greatest wheat belt in the world when this is over with. And Greenland may be making some of the best dry Chardonnays. But what's happening around the equator? Well, there are losers in this scenario, including huge countries, Indonesia, Brazil, Nigeria. They want their reparations, and they want them now.
Yes, they're called the Reparationists in the book. And so, it's worth mentioning right now. I've always referred to the statistics. I don't know how much this is, but America, about 5% of the world's population, but uses about 25% of the world's resources, energy resources. China, I don't know what the percentages are there, but there's a few countries that are the most people and they use the most resources. And those countries that are most hurt by that are the more vulnerable countries that are more obviously affected by climate change. And so that's the case that they're making. How did I do at predicting? How did you guys do at predicting that and characterizing it such? Elliot?
I think, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, that creates resentments that if, suddenly a country like Indonesia or Brazil becomes uninhabitable and northern parts of the globe or parts that are more distant from the equator become places where people can start to inhabit, the question becomes, who gets control of that territory? And that those tensions are rife for conflict and war. And we kind of imagine one of those wars in this book.
Yeah, you do. There it is, 2084. These guys write these books together, which is so weird. I mean, what a weird process, especially when you're used to writing alone, which you both also do. I guess one benefit is that, Jim, you get to look at Elliot. Do you do it on FaceTime, I hope? He's so pretty. He's so beautiful.
Well, I always say he is definitely the best looking guy in this combo.
Is that why you do it? Is that why you guys write? Because he's so handsome? Or is it?
No, not so much. But basically, our duality works because we have this shared military background, because we have a shared academic background. We're both graduates of the Fletcher School at Tufts University. Yeah. And we're both extremely handsome in different ways.
I'm sorry, we lost you on that last. You cut out right there, Jim, at the end, so I didn't have to follow up. For God's sakes, you look like me, sir. So this book, 2084, is a series of three here. You've written it together. You've got all these great characters, and you're kind of, making a lot of predictions. And it's based not only on your creativity, but it's based on what's happening right now. Talk a little bit more about what we are doing now in terms of the climate. We can talk about geopolitics and economics and all kinds of things. But in terms of the climate right now, what not only the U.S., obviously, but the leading polluters and users of these energy is doing now, and what do we know right now? Because this is a warning. This is my favorite of your books because this, to me, is the most important issue, and it's the most inevitable, obvious issues. The other things that you write about aren't definitely going to happen. This one is, Jim. Talk to me about what we know now.
What we know is that the planet is warming, the ice is melting, more droughts, more superstorms. That's all pretty baked in, and I think 95% of scientists globally agree with that. So there's the problem set. The issue is, how do you reverse engineer it so that we don't end up in a crisis? Three quick things. Number one, we've got to reduce carbon emissions for all the reasons most folks appreciate. That contributes to the rise. Number two, we need to be mindful of the oceans. The Admiral's going to say it, but here's 70% of the planet where 70% of our oxygen actually comes from. Al Gore likes to say the Amazon are the lungs of the earth. Wrong. The lungs of the earth are the oceans. Photosynthesis creates that. We're polluting the ocean, destroying its ecosystem, and making them acidic, terrifying. And then number three, you've got the drought conditions that are going to destroy food production in the mid-latitudes. So huge problem set. What we have to do is address each of those. They're discrete problems. We still have time to address them.
The issue with the oceans, people always think about sea level rise and point to that and then try to debunk it. But as you just said, kind of subtly, but I just want to reiterate, it's the pH balance of the ocean that matters. The acidity, like you don't want an ocean that nothing can live in. Coral reefs are dying, and that is almost inevitable, which is why I've argued we should just put, you know what? We're going to put chlorine in it. The ocean. We'll drop tablets in the ocean and everything will be fine.
You sound like somebody I hear their voice a lot, but I can't place it.
We're just going to, very simple, it's going to go away. Climate change is just going to go away, Elliot, so we don't have to worry about it. Same question to you, though. It's inevitable. Like, unlike your other book, it's not inevitable that we're going to get in a war with China, that we're going to have a civil war. You've talked about this, written about this in the past, but this is. So the same question to you, which not everybody does when they're interviewing two people, but I do.
Well, I think you have to extrapolate out from that inevitability. What does that mean for the world? What does it mean for geopolitics? What's it for the United States? What does it mean for migration patterns? Where are people going to live? What does justice look like for the people who are affected? And how do those conflicting senses of justice possibly lead to future wars? And that's what we imagine in 2084. I mean, the one thing I say is, like, each of these books we're not necessarily making predictions. I think we're making speculations. We're saying, like, this is what could happen. And if you imagine what could happen, that's probably the best way to avoid the worst case outcome.
What about the argument that the reparationists make, the ethical argument as to what they are owed and as to why? I mean, those island nations, especially those on the lower end of the income, they already have the case to make, and they're making it right now for reparations. I'm sure that probably helped make you come up with that. But what is the ethical considerations? Elliot, you first, and then you too, Jim. Like, what do they say to try to get back to civilization, have a land they can live on and work on?
Well, I think that, we imagine that basically the two great forces in geopolitics in 2084 are, yes, the reparationists, and then also what's called the consortium. And that's a consortium of industrialized nations that have not been as directly affected by climate. And so in 2084, China and the United States are allied in the consortium. And so the claim that the reparationists are basically making is that, the consortium nations are the ones who used a disproportionate amount of energy creating this climate crisis. And as the globe changes and new lands open up, you should not be able to just take control of those lands. Those lands should be opened to us as a form of climate reparations.
Well, it sounds like a pretty good argument. I mean, you mentioned migration. Like, in the history of human civilization, humans have had to migrate as a result of resources. And they've also, unfortunately, had wars. You guys are war scholars. You probably know about every war, much less ones where people were fighting over and having to escape because they couldn't grow something. Or I figured, isn't there one war where on the way out, the imperialistic country just salted the earth? I mean, this is not like you have to make it up. This has happened so much. It's happening right now. People are leaving places where they can't grow food, where there's no water, Jim, right?
Indeed, and what you're referring to most famously, of course, are the Carthaginian Wars, the Romans versus the Carthaginians. At the end of the war, the Romans salted the earth of Carthage in North Africa, and it led to this precise set of outcomes. I want to add to the moral justice argument a very pragmatic argument, which is it's a global economy. We already see that. And if you are destroying these mid-latitude countries, they have no productivity. They can't contribute to agriculture. They cannot be markets for your industrialized goods. So there's not only the moral justice argument, a very pragmatic argument for the planet, for people. If you want to have that holistic global economy, you got to have functioning economies in those mid-latitudes.
Yeah, that would be thoughtful. And it would be thoughtful right now as well if we could make that happen and support them as opposed to pulling out all of our aid and support. I always thought that foreign aid was like the greatest national defense in the world, because if you're giving people food and medicine, they're less likely to hate you than if your enemy is doing that. But I'm not a scholar, you guys.
Let me give you a personal observation on why foreign assistance, foreign aid is the best dollar for dollar value for U.S. national security. It's pennies on the dollar. And it's the way you think about medicine for your body. You can do very high-end, very expensive things like surgeries. There are uncertain outcomes. That's hard power in a military context. Or you can do the basics. You can walk 10,000 steps a day. You can take a statin. You can have an annual physical. You can have a good diet. All of that doesn't cost you anything, but it'll keep you living a lot longer. That's soft power. Hard power, very expensive in medicine, very expensive in war. Look at the war in Iran right now, $1 billion a day. On the other hand, the soft power stuff, bags of rice, vaccines, build a clinic, build a school and a well, pennies on the dollar, and it is huge return on the dollar to global and to U.S. security. I
don't care about like viruses in other countries, though, because I live here. It's not like they would come. We have the ocean that would. So why would you stop Ebola in the Congo right now? Because I live in Rockland County, where Trump is going to be tomorrow. So the kids have half a day. Okay, so Elliot, I got to ask you about technology too in this new book and all the books. Like, how do you predict whether it be AI or robots? I mean, both you guys are very young men. Both of you guys were in wars, in combat. Elliot in Fallujah, you were a Marine. You wore a Marine uniform and whatever the CIA wears, which I think is khakis and glasses and a thick beard, which I'm not sure if you could fully grow, you handsome devil. Admiral, you were probably on the command of a ship, probably way up in the thing that they sit in. I believe it's a throne. You have a crown that you wear, but neither of you had to deal with these robots and the AI that has so rapidly transformed war in the last, what do you want to say? 5 years, 10 years, certainly as a result of the war in Ukraine. But like, this isn't the war, the military that either of you served in. I'm going to go ahead and boldly say, and it certainly isn't in 2084. How am I doing here, Elliot?
Great. I mean, I think, listen, the one thing about war is that it is always changing, always evolving, and the technologies between wars, yes, they differ greatly. But the other thing about war is there's sort of a timelessness to war. And you see that in Ukraine, right? A war where you've basically got drones, swarms, and the very cutting edge of technology operating in a war that's being fought in trenches that look like they could have existed in the First World War. And I think the way we sort of, predict what future outcomes are going to look like is we take current technological trends and we just kind of project them out to their most extremes. But we're also always trying to stay anchored in some of the unchangeable parts of war, and the unchangeable parts of war that it's a conflict that is fundamentally political between human beings. And so I think the book is anchored both in high tech and just sort of the low tech aspects of war.
Jim, a friend of mine, a listener, is a commander of a certain submarine. I won't say his name, but I talked to him a lot. He's a great guy. His name isn't Brian, but we'll say Brian told me that, he can't tell me much. It's so annoying when you're talking to an active duty member of the military and they won't tell you whatever you want to hear over beers. Like, it's just us and my phone on the table recording. But he said, they don't have as many as, basically the underwater drones and robots that you would think, much less any seafaring. They do have a lot of capabilities already. One of ours just washed up on North Africa, is my understanding. But where are we now with drone warfare, robots in the sea, and where do you guys predict we are in the wars in 2084?
Yeah, we're currently on the beach at Kitty Hawk. We're just learning how to fly these things. And there is so much to come that is difficult to comprehend, but I'll give you 2 points to hold in mind. One is the connectivity between terrestrial and space. All this is going to be kind of organized and seamlessly controlled, a great deal of it by artificial intelligence. And the other thing is biotechnology, the degree to which the human mind itself will be able to instantly direct these unmanned vehicles, control these robots. I think that is coming as well. We explore all that in 2084.
Last question. I feel like every major conflict the United States has been in my lifetime has ended up being a disaster. I think that's because, in short, the hubris of civilian decision makers, often domestic politics. I would certainly say that's the case right now in Iran. But guys, just help me understand. How come we seem to get it so wrong? It's not as if military experts and leaders aren't telling civilian leaders, this is likely what's going to happen. Nobody knows more than you, and everybody wants you on their show, Jim, to talk about the Strait of Hormuz, which I believe you built with your own hands when you were a young sailor. Everybody told the president this is what would happen. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. It wasn't closed before the war. It's closed now. It looks like we're losing. Everybody knew this was going to happen. They told them it was going to happen, yet here we are. What do you want to say about that, both of you? Jim, you first.
I'll do the Strait of Hormuz first. We can open it. We're probably going to end up opening it militarily. But why? I mean, 3 months ago, we didn't even conceive of it being closed. So, yeah, I'd call this a policy failure at this point. We're certainly doing a lot militarily. But pretty, at this moment, looks like a bad set of outcomes. And ultimately, we're going to have to open this strait either diplomatically or military force. I do want to make a point about America and war. I would say a fair look would be to go 100 years back. Look at all our wars for 100 years. World War I, victory. World War II, victory. Korean War, you can argue a draw, but I'd call it a victory. Vietnam, very clear loss. Oh, by the way, the Cold War, the most important war ever, because the world could have been destroyed. We won the Cold War. Afghanistan, clear loss. Iraq, I think the jury's out. We went in there to make sure there were no nukes, have a democracy, work with them. Iraq, jury's out. And then finally, Iran, we're in the middle of it, too soon to tell. It's not a great record, but it's hardly a record of consistent failure if you look at it across 100-year.
Man, if I were in that room with you right now, I swear to God, we would be fighting. I would jump off the top rope. I'd jump up with a flying. I'd be wearing a weird spandex, which would make you uncomfortable too. But the reason why I disagree is because I only want to look at the wars of my lifetime, and I'll throw in my dad's lifetime, and I'll say dad because it was those guys that lived through Vietnam. When we invaded Iraq, my dad, who was in the reserves during Vietnam and I think fell asleep in a Lincoln somewhere at the baseball park, he said, how do we not know better? This generation should have known better about Afghanistan and Iraq, and yet they made that mistake, which is why I don't. And then, Iraq, jury's out. I would argue, according to all the experts I've talked to, the Iraq war empowered Iran like nothing else could have been. Without Iraq, you wouldn't have a powerful Iran. But you know what? We'll let Elliot split the baby, the difference, and wrap it up in terms of just my question about hubris. And you can feel free to take me down as well.
I think that there's something that's very seductive in war, particularly for leaders. And, if you look at the Trump administration's decision to go to war, they had been riding probably what they perceived to be a series of victories, from the Maduro raid to Operation Midnight Hammer to the death of Qasem Soleimani. And I think for any leader, for whether it's, a Napoleon or a Hitler, you name it, when you're on a winning streak, you think you're going to keep winning. And I think that's, a little bit what we're seeing with Iran. But I think, listen, we live in a republic, and it's critically important that the decisions of war and peace are not outsourced solely to the chief executive, but that we have a Congress that hold the chief executive accountable, so that we, the people, are ultimately the ones who have the power to stop wars. And sadly, it seems like we've outsourced that. So hopefully Congress will reassert its power, its war-making powers.
Speaking of power, do you pretty much, as a matter of routine, just delete any portion where a guest disagrees with you? Because I want you to know I'm going to be listening to this podcast to make sure my commentary survives the editing process. No,
usually what I go, when it's just a guest as prestigious and established, as powerful as you, I usually go in and just dub over your words with my voice doing Trump voice. It's me, Jim. You know what I would argue is it's me. Don't you recognize me? I don't edit anything like that. Of course not. I'm intimidated as hell by both of you, which is why I'm so glad to talk to both of you again. The book is 2084. Get all three of them. Get the series. It's really important. You guys are doing important work here by, as you know, writing these books and kind of predicting what could be and how we can change it. And you're obviously doing trying to change that, and you realize every day. I really appreciate it. I'm always grateful getting the opportunity to talk to you. Elliot, Jim, thank you both for your service. Thank you both for your joining me, and I always happy to talk anytime.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks a lot, Pete.
I got nervous right at the end there. Right.
I thought you seemed a little choked up.
Oops, I cut the tape. Oh, darn it. That was good. Those guys are good. They don't mind me giving a hard time, and they're not afraid to give me a hard time, as you can see. And I thought it made the interview a lot more fun. Hopefully you appreciated it. I know they did. I'm so happy to have you here today. Thank you very much for your support. I should be live around 11 today with Michael Ian Black. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking to David Rothkopf. Who would you like me to invite on the show this week? You bumblebees get the first shot at it here at the end of the show, because you listened all the way to the end. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Thank you for your support. I will talk to you tomorrow. That's the time you gotta finally get up on your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. And you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels in leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up
out the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up. Oh, got to stand up. Oh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up, people got the power. Stand up. Come on, 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 come on. Stand